Once there was a 26-year-old young man, and he struggled with anxiety and depression. He had a traumatic event happen in his life, and he had the wild idea to take his own life. And he carried pills in his pocket for the day in which he would do it. And one day, he was sitting on a subway train in New York, and across the way was another man, about 20 years older. And there was something peculiar about this other man because he was sitting in lotus position. And the young man was very curious because he had always wanted to learn yoga. So he decided to ask, "Are you a yogi?" And the yogi said, "I am." He said, "Well, do you teach yoga?" And the yogi said, "I do." And he said, "Well, will you teach me?" And the yogi said, "I will." And the young man said, "How much?" And the yogi said, "Nothing." So the young man traveled to the yogi's home in Brooklyn every week. And every week, the yogi noticed that the young man was very, very sad. And the yogi was very concerned. So he sat the young man down to tell him a story about a time in his life when he was 26 years old and he suffered from anxiety and depression, and he had a traumatic event happen in his life, and he had the wild idea to take his own life, and he carried pills in his pocket for the day in which he would do it, and he did it. The yogi did it. And as he was hovering above his body, he could see his family members coming in mourning and broken because of what he had done to himself. And he wished in that moment that he could wipe away the tears from their eyes. And in that moment, he found himself back in his body. And he decided from that moment on, with a second chance at life, that he would dedicate his life to the happiness of others and that he would do that through the ancient art of yoga. And the young man was shocked, and he hesitantly, cautiously reached into his pocket and he pulled out his pills and he showed the yogi, and the yogi said, "Oh, so this is the reason why I was led to tell you this story." Everyone in here is a great storyteller. Everyone in here has the ability to tell a story that can heal, transform, maybe even save a life. In that one moment, the yogi, the young man, and the event of suicide connected together. It became one, it yoked together. And it's interesting about the word yoga. Yoga means to yoke to, or unite with, connect to what? To the all that is within us all. We are all suffering from anxiety. It's an epidemic. The National Institute of Mental Health says there are two types of anxiety. There's the anxiety that you can overcome and you get over it, but then there's the anxiety that's unnatural, the disorder that stays with you, that you go to sleep with every night and you wake up to every morning, and it affects your performance, your work, your relationships. It may even cause you to take your own life. But whether it's with natural anxiety or unnatural anxiety, we have learned to deal with it through the ancient art of yoga. And when I practice yoga, it seems like the knots of anxiety and depression unlock, and I feel this inspiration and joy and serenity. And it's interesting because Medline says that the benefits of yoga are it lowers your blood pressure. It creates better breath flow, blood flow. It decreases anxiety and depression, and it increases inspiration and joy. But I notice that when I tell stories, it also unlocks anxiety and depression. and it gives me inspiration and joy. And when I studied what that is, the Very Well Mind says about storytelling the same thing that was said about yoga. Storytelling lowers your blood pressure. It creates better breath flow, blood flow. It decreases anxiety and depression. So imagine that telling stories can also bring healing to your mind, your soul, and your body. Storytelling and yoga are both healing modalities for storytelling, not just for the listeners, but for the storyteller as well. I have been this size since I was 13 years old. And not only have I been this size since I was 13 years old, I also had sideburns. And I didn't just have sideburns, I had a 19-year-old girlfriend. It was the 80s. We didn't know no better. But I also, because of my size, I was prime target for gang life, and I got involved. But all was interrupted when a man came up to me and introduced himself as the high school theater teacher. And he wanted to teach me theater. And when he taught me theater and storytelling, I noticed that the knots of anxiety and depression began to unlock within my soul, and my life got a lot better, and I started to see myself differently, and I let go of street life, and I embraced the life of storytelling, and I continued with it, and now I'm an actor. And so about 5 years ago, I was able to get with my high school theater teacher, and I was able to thank him. I said, "Thank you, Mr. Jennings, because when you taught me storytelling and acting, it relieved me of my anxiety and depression. I was suffering from that, and you transformed and changed. You saved my life." And he said to me, "You know, that's interesting, because back during that time, I suffered from anxiety and depression as well. And when I was teaching you and the students storytelling and acting, it relieved me of my anxiety and depression. It transformed my life. You saved my life. And so I'd like to thank you." In one moment, myself, my high school theater teacher, and the event of storytelling transformed our lives. There's a story that I tell to young people, to university students, to corporations and organizations, because it's a universal story. It connects us, it yokes us. It's your story, it's our story. And it's a story about an eagle who thought he was a chicken. One day, an eagle's egg was placed into the nest of chickens. And one day, the eaglet hatched, and he looked around and he saw he was surrounded by all these little chickens. So the eagle, he began to act like a chicken. The eagle began to walk like a chicken. The eagle began to talk like a chicken. The eagle pecked his neck in the ground like a chicken and flew only a few feet off the ground like a chicken. But one day, the eagle grew up, and he looked into the sky and he saw a speck. And the speck became a ball, and the ball became a bird, and the bird became a huge beast flying in the sky, soaring in the winds. And the eagle, who thought he was a chicken, said to his neighbor who was a chicken, "Wow, what kind of bird is that? I want to be just like him." And his friend said, "Oh, why, that's an eagle, the king of all the birds, but don't you give it a second thought. You'll never be like him." So the eagle never gave it a second thought, and he almost died thinking he was a chicken until the big old brown, beautiful bird flying in the sky, soaring in the winds. When he saw the eagle playing with the chicken, he said, "Hey there, young fella, what you doing down there with all them chickens? Why don't you come on up here with me and fly high in the sky and soar in the winds?" But the eagle, who thought he was a chicken, said, "Excuse me, sir, you're greatly mistaken. I am a chicken." But the big old brown bird laughed. He said, "Whoo-hoo, the devil is a lie. You are an eagle. Why, look at your big old brown feathers. Help protect you when you're flying close to the sun. And look at your big old brown wings. Help power yourself up here. And woo-hoo! Camera person, look at your big old feet. What size shoe you wear? 9.5 help catch your prey, and your fierce eyes to help you have great vision. Well, the chicken said, don't listen to the big old brown bird in the sky. He's lying to you. Besides, nobody is allowed to fly any higher than any of us can fly. You are a chicken. You're just a deformed chicken. That's the reason why you look the way you do. Well, in this moment, the eagle, who thought he was a chicken, had to make a choice. He could choose to believe he was an eagle, or he could choose to believe he was a chicken, and there was a sense of freedom in the choice. So he chose to believe he was an eagle. And he began to flap his wings and flew higher and higher and grew stronger and stronger and flew high into his destiny. And the young man took the pills out of his pocket. And the yogi said, oh, so this is the reason why I felt led to tell you this story, where you have a choice to make. You can either leave the pills here with me, or you can take the pills with you and take your own life. And the young man had to make a choice. And he felt a sense of freedom in the choice. And so he chose to leave the pills with the yogi. And he went on to live his life. He went on to live his dream, to be a storyteller. And that young man is standing right here before you today. Thank you very much. Thank you.